You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Welborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. Joining him is everyone's favorite coach and hair model, Chris, aka Tex McQuilkin, Power Athlete's Director of Performance. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
We have a good friend of the podcast and friend of ours, longtime Jeff Gonzales, Triton Concepts, who also teaches some badass pistol shooting classes.
Yes.
And we had Craig Douglas who kind of gave our closing talk at the collective. And in there was some little bit of banter about getting McQuilkin to one of his combatives courses.
Yes.
And I got the one thing I was a little nervous about, even though Craig, it's not really a shooting course. You have to do some shooting proficiency, and there's some dicey shit that he does.
The gun handling is still the gun handling, yeah.
So I figured what better place than to take Chris to Mr. Jeff Gonzales, who actually I feel like taught me how to shoot. I was kind of a fucking shit show before we started working together years ago.
But I'll never say that to you.
I'll never say that to your face. No, but I was I was doing some work with the NSW and got invited to go to a shooting school, and I figured I better not show up and look like a complete asshole. So I recruited Jeff, who pretty much over the course of about 8 hours got me pretty far to where I showed up, and those people actually thought I knew what I was doing. That's what I've always said. With
mission accomplished.
If Jeff can take somebody like Chris doesn't have any shooting instruction, he goes to a level 2, and I mean, if you had talked to people, they wouldn't have thought that you were a new shooter.
Yeah,
I passed the last test, but then DQ'd everything else, so they kind of brought my score down.
Just a little.
Yeah,
down to a 10.
Well,
11.
But there were actually people in the course that DQ'd it.
Yeah, on the final test. Yeah, there were.
So I mean, that's the thing about interesting about Jeff's course is that people show up and a lot of people fail.
Oh man!
And I know there's people that get butthurt about it, but you're like, the score is the score. I can't fucking magically give you a participation trophy.
No, we do not issue out juice box. Though I did have a juice box prepared for Tex just in case. If he started to cry, I was like, I should have something ready for him. But this last rifle class, we had a lot of people in the class, and they were good people. It turns out this was one of the better rifle classes I've done in a long time. And early on, I had to just manage their expectations. When I looked at their gear, I was like, if your rifle weighs over this much, you're not passing this class. And when we weighed the rifles, every one of them weighed over that much.
Oh, because they had so much shit on their rifle.
Yeah, and none of them passed the class.
What's the break mark amount?
No more than 8 pounds.
Oh, so they were slinging 8-10-pound rifles.
I had one rifle that was about 9.7, and then everybody else was about 8.7 to about maybe just at 9. I had that was on day 1. On day 2, it was a miracle to see how light a lot of those rifles got.
So they just started jettisoning all the bullshit.
Now,
were these all 16 inchers?
No, I think I had 2 AR pistols in the class. So those were shorter barrels. They're not short barrel rifles, but they were AR pistols, so they definitely had a shorter barrel. So
people actually taking your course with an AR pistol.
Yeah, we've had that before. Wow. I mean, there's nothing significantly wrong with that. I mean, the way that the ATF finalized the most recent ruling, there's no penalty for mounting the stock or in this case brace into your armpit. So
and then creating a cheek weld with it. I remember there was a weird
so that was the thing. If you made contact in 2 points. So if you made, because technically a pistol brace can only make contact in 1, which is that's the brace. But if you make contact in 2 points, then theoretically it becomes a stock. Mm-hmm. So they kind of worked through the ruling on that one, and now we see it every now and then. I don't recommend it because the braces are just really mushy,
and they're small.
And I mean, it's more about how pliable they are, because they have to be pliable to fit around your forearm. And that pliability works great when you're trying to stick your forearm into them, but when you're trying to mount it up in your shoulder pocket, it sucks. And so that was a consistency problem. So in other words, it kind of, maybe it folds a little bit to the left this time, folds a little bit to the right this time, didn't fold at all this time. And so you're constantly getting a slightly different, shoulder pocket mount. And it just, and again, you don't know what you don't know until you get out there and start slinging lead with all that stuff. And then you put some parameters, like some standards in place so that you know that, okay, this was good, this was bad. They can start to see the effects of that. And that's what I see the most, is that when without standards, most people just go about their day without ever thinking, without putting two thoughts into what they're doing or why they're doing something. You put a little bit of standard into something, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, let me rethink this. Why am I doing it this way?
So is this in a non-NFA state?
Yeah, it was Pennsylvania.
So it's Pennsylvania, which doesn't allow NFA.
Yeah. Well, you could, if you wanted to bring. I'm sorry, you could bring it to the state if you wanted. You just got to put out the paperwork. It's, the problem that I have always had with doing that is they want their cake and they want to eat it too. Meaning that I have to fill out a form with enough notice that I can get it returned to me. And they've gotten a little bit better, but every now and then something gets bogged up. And if I'm counting on bringing that SBR to the class and I don't get the paperwork, then I'm screwed. So I just stopped doing it altogether because it just never was reliable. Like sometimes I'd get it back in 30 days, sometimes it'd be 90 days. And meanwhile, on the form, you have to list the location that the controlled item will be stored at, since it's not stored in its home location. And so that means you have to have your hotel or your range, wherever you're going to be staying or wherever you're going to be putting the firearm. It's just such a pain in the ass these days. So now if I'm leaving the state of Texas, I don't even bother anymore. Okay. It's just not worth it.
So what is it, were people using like LPVOs, like low powered
no, actually, this
variable optics, or just all red dots?
On day one, we had one LPVO, and by day two, it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not, you really just have to play with the scales. You have to kind of like figure it out. Okay, like one guy had, I don't know, I've never seen it before, but the receiver had a pistol grip that it appears as though weighed like 9/10 of a pound. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing with something that's that heavy on your rifle, pistol grip? It's like, what the fuck? And he took it off on day two, and it like literally dropped 0.9 pounds off of his rifle's weight. So I'm like,
was it like some machined Kydex?
No, plastic? It wasn't. It was actually like aluminum. It looked like. I mean, I didn't like. I saw it on day one, and I was thinking to myself, well, that's something I don't see that often. And then on day two, he's like, hey, did you bring your scale? I want to weigh this again. And I'm like, what'd you do? Because I asked that, and on day two, I asked, did anybody do anything significant to their rifles? Because it could potentially affect their zeros. And so before we start zeroing, I just want to know who's really kind of messing around with their stuff. And this guy said that he had done some stuff. And when I asked him, he said that he took this thing off. And I was like, why'd you do that? And he says, well, I think it weighs a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean you think it weighs a lot? Don't you know how much it weighs? Why would you put something on your rifle without knowing how much it weighs? And and I say that with a somewhat condescending tone, because to me it's obvious, but to a lot of people it's not, because again, there's this misunderstanding about what the rifle really should be doing. Like the rifle should not, you got to define the mission. What is the intention for that? And most rifle classes that we teach that are open enrollments, the default setting is a defensive rifle used in an urban setting. Mm-hmm. That's it. At the unit level, it's different. It's an offensive weapon used in a an asymmetrical battlefield. So it's a big difference there. But this guy, when he changed out that lower and we weighed it, he was like, wow, that weighed a lot. I'm like, yeah, it did. So it was just kind of like interesting to see the changes that I shouldn't say interesting. We see it every class.
I always imagine sometimes it's like a Christmas tree. Like when you get your first Christmas tree your first year, you put some ornaments on, and then next thing, about 10 years down the road, your fucking Christmas tree is just packed with shit.
Yeah.
You gotta almost throw everything away and start over, which is when I've gone shooting with people, I'm like, man, that thing looks like a fucking 10-year-old Christmas tree.
10-year-old Christmas tree. That's a good one.
Lot of shit on there.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I think too, sometimes what happens is there is and I want to say this without hurting people's feelings, but there's this desire to try to look cool. And I'm totally down with that. I mean, you can look as cool as you want, But if you really have no reason to put all that stuff on there, then why? You know, and if you want to just have that for plinking purposes, great, fantastic. Or like it's just like every now and then you're going to break that bad boy out and you're going to get busy with it, fine. But to truly become, you know, comfortable with a rifle and to truly use the term rifleman, you really have to know what you're doing. And I tell this to everybody, the first step in that process, that pathway that you're going to take is having the lightest rifle possible, you know, cut weight whenever you can. And all that's going to do is it's going to tip the scale in your favor to learning the fundamentals a lot easier and a lot faster than somebody else that doesn't do it.
What's the breakdown of DIs versus piston rifles?
Let's see. We had one piston gun on day 1, went away on day 2, and everything else was a DI.
Yeah. So DI is direct
impingement.
Yeah. Which is
so. And typically, no, I take that back. We did have 2, and one of them stayed. Yep, one of them stayed. The first one was the one that was a little bit heavy, and I kind of thought that it was more than what the guy needed for the class, and he figured that out pretty quickly. And what's ironic, and this is what I love, is the moment we can cut weight down to a manageable framework, the student all of a sudden starts learning. And that particular student really took on the learning process, and by day 2, he really was doing well. He had figured out some of the issues that, and the way I explain it is like it's like it's murky water when you're dealing with something that's that heavy of sorts. It's just all murky. The moment you can let that all that filament and all that crap just settle to the ground, you can see clearer. And it makes it so much easier in the learning process. And at some point, yeah, sure, go for it. Throw all that crap on there because now you have the skills. You're proven, right? You've proven yourself as far as being a rifleman. You have the skills to be doing well there. So when you add any piece of equipment, you see the adverse effect immediately, and then you can like determine, okay, you know what? I really don't need this, or this is going to change my game up a little bit. I need to approach it from this angle. But going the other direction just always ends in failure.
Yeah, we see similar things with barbell in a much more general scale, not as skill associated. But if you do start too heavy, then kids cannot concentrate on the execution. They're just fighting for survival. So any coaching cue or direction we would throw at them, there's no adjusting. Like I say kids because that's mostly who I'm working with, but that goes for Gen Pop entering into a gym. And I know you've seen some folks go way too heavy, especially at the seminars. Well,
the other one, too, is a lot like a rifle with programming. People just start adding things to their program, and that's the analogy.
They have no idea.
I mean, that's the analogy of the Christmas tree, where I would look at programs, and they've just hung exercises on there without any thought. And I'm like, how does this get back? Economy of time. Like, what can you get done? You know, I mean, it's as I was prepping for the podcast, I was thinking a little bit about really how we first met. We got introduced by a mutual friend, Tony Blauer, and Jeff and I went out and worked together, and he got me real proficient shooting quick. And then Jeff hits me up. It's like, hey, man, I got a problem. My wrist is fucked. I haven't been able to train. I got all these injuries. Like, can you help me? And I was like, yeah, man, I mean, this is what we do. And we started our program, which was basically rebuilding Jeff Gonzales. And it went on. It went on. It was
$1 million man.
Oh, dude, it was epic. I remember the day he showed up and he went through the assessment, and then we went into the whiteboard and we started designing this. He was like, what the fuck is going on here?
I still have all those notes too, by the way. Because I was just floored. I was like, oh my God. But see that, and I love telling that story to people because that's like, to me, that's like one of my favorite success stories that I got to participate in. And you know, the progressions, like the way that you managed all of those progressions, and in even kind of tempering my excitement, like, oh, like I want to go throttle open, like just fucking full bore, let's go. And you were like, easy cowboy, you know, and kind of toned it down a little bit. And that I firmly believe that it was that the process, and that's the other thing that we tell people: you have to just trust the process. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, you know, an 8-hour, 16-hour seminar, whether it's your seminar, whether it's my seminar, folks walk away with knowledge. very rarely do they walk away mastering the application of that knowledge.
Yeah.
And the point is that they have to walk away with that knowledge so that they can then continue to work at the application towards mastery. And that's it. It doesn't get any simpler than that. And and that's why I love working within like the fitness and the shooting communities, because there's so much parallel between the two. You have the same problems where people come to you thinking, well, wait a minute, what if I just did that? Wouldn't that solve all my problems? Well, no. I mean, you have a lot more to have to do. It's just not that simple. Like, it's not like a one simple step kind of process. Same thing in the shooting world. People want to know, what do I need to do to be a good shooter? And I'm like, well, it's going to take some time. That's my new thing now, is like, how do I manage their expectation when I know the answer they're asking for is how long? Mm-hmm. How long is it going to take for me to achieve good? Whatever good is to them. How long?
Man, but that is so subjective. You could apply it to anything.
It's true.
Like think about let's use jiu-jitsu for example.
Oh, love it.
Right? Like how long does it take to actually feel like you're not going to get fucking choked out? And that's an interesting one.
A long time.
Well, but I mean, like a guy asked me, he's like, man, like he was super frustrated, and I was like, hey, man, like that belt around your waist, it's white, which means that nobody expects anything from you,
dude.
Nobody's expecting you to come in here and fucking be like a Henzo Gracie, and fucking slamming people. Like you have a carte blanche to suck. And on top of it, like embrace it, because at some point there's going to be color around your waist, and then people are going to fucking think that you know something, and they're going to expect something from you. So like relish in this, and
I fucking love that.
And the same thing with the shooting stuff. Like it's weird at your course, just being naturally competitive. Like when we started it, like yeah, I know it's fucking hard. I have this like so. Tex knows this. Like every day, I have this little fucking dude on my shoulder that's got like pointy ears, and then I got this other dude with a halo, and there's like a constant battle between like, hey, don't let these fucking guys beat you. No. It's all about the process, John. You have to fucking do this. And so I have this like good versus bad. But like when we got out there and we started shooting, like so humble. So if you guys don't know, where Jeff starts his shooting for his qual is at 20 yards, which doesn't sound
25.
like
25.
I'm sorry. That's right. 25 yards.
It's okay.
We start the qual at 25 with a pistol, and you're basically trying to punch holes in an 8-inch target at 25. Which doesn't sound terrible until you're all of a sudden drawing from conceal in like a group of, what do we have, 12, 15
people there.
Yeah, 12 people. Yeah. You're lined out at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning in bass drop. You're out there in like a, deal. You're basically drawing from conceal, and you're having to punch these holes.
Yeah.
There's a man-sized target, and you're basically trying to put, shots on target in the chest on an 8-inch piece. And, you shoot and like, you're pulling it out, you're putting, the dot right where you want it to go, you're pulling the trigger, and like, you can't really make it out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden as you start getting closer, and then you go down to the 20 and the 15 and the 7, and then all of a sudden you get to like the 10, and you're like, man, I totally fucking whiffed on that shot. I can see like whole, like I can see daylight up in the white. And I'm like, man, I just EQ'd this motherfucker. It's so fucking humbling, because you still have to finish the qual.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that like I totally fucking DQ'd off of throwing this shot. And it's not something that I regularly do. When I go to the range and I shoot my concealed carry, I don't start at 25 yards.
Yeah.
I usually shoot like, I'll shoot like a 10, 7, 5, 3 kind of progression.
Yeah.
Which is like, what is it, the NRA qual?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, in all honesty, the majority of defensive gun uses are going to be happening at close ranges. Yeah. But there's enough outliers, and the outliers continue to grow, that distance is going to be a condition that you're going to have to manage. And on top of that, you're much better off trying to exploit distance to your advantage, so that you can take advantage of the other guy's shitty shooting skills.
But I mean, like, fuck, dude. Like, on my Glock 43X that I have, like, I have 3 10-round mags for it. So I'll basically stop in and I shoot 30 rounds.
Yeah.
And I try like every other month to go shoot my duty loads.
Nice.
And I'll go in there and I'll shoot like what it's like 5 at 15. I kind of do a progression down, and as soon as I'm out, I just fucking get out there, because also being commercial ranges scares the shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're going to see some dude over there with like one hand shooting a 44 mag with like an 8-inch barrel, and then another dude with like an AK-47 pistol that's just like spraying and praying, and you're like, oh fuck, dude, I'm going to get killed in this motherfucker.
It's true.
But So super humbling. And then all of a sudden I get up and I can see the daylight and I'm like, fuck, I know I just DQ'd this, but you still got to shoot the qual.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, everybody, go freshen up your mags. I'm going to grade you. And then
that pisses people off so much because they're like, I just want to look at the target. I'm like, you can see the damn target. You already know if you already know, like walking down and putting your hand on the target isn't going to change the fact that you failed. It's like, just chill, relax, just go and load your mags, come back. But
then you have to be okay with the process.
And
then all of a sudden I remember thinking like, I can only go up from here.
Yeah.
And now, you know what, we got to have a good time. We got to take in the skills and we got to be, lighthearted. And I feel like the more that people start to like fucking grind down, and I could see people there where they were like getting mad and this and this, and they just got worse and worse. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be rough for these people.
Well, it's true. I mean, we all learn differently, and we all, sometimes that can be a good thing, like that incentive, like you're incentivized to try to be a better shot or do better for whatever the correction is, the remedy that you're trying to apply. But one of the things that I think you touched on that I feel is often overlooked is if you are so wound tight, then you kind of miss out on some of the inputs that the firearm is sharing with you. You're not able to see those. And that's the first step in trying to self-correct all your shooting errors, is being able to recognize the inputs that you're getting. Just like with the barbell, the bar's in front of you, the bar's behind you, whether you're doing snatches or cleans and you feel that movement or you see that movement and you know what's going on, the most likely result is that they're not able to focus on that precision that they need for the pathway of the barbell, just like they are not able to focus on the application of precision with the firearm they're trying to shoot. Mm-hmm. And when they can loosen up a little bit, I find that you just taking that input in is easy. It's there. It's like that data that's just floating in the air, but whether or not you actually capture it is yet to be determined. And the more tense you are, the more anxious you are, the more stressed out you are, the less you are to see it.
Yeah, we speak to in our online academy or methodology course to help coaches identify the athlete that they're working with, the competency model. So there's 4 stages to the competency model. The first is unconscious incompetence. This is the people that get there, they don't know what they're doing wrong,
right,
and or they don't value the coaching. So if you have ever approached somebody at the range that maybe you just want to give them a tip and they're not hearing it or appreciating it, they're in this stage of unconscious incompetence. And enough coaching, breakdown opportunity when they realize that they need help, then they gain into conscious incompetence, meaning they know they're doing something wrong. However, they just can't quite have the coordination or the skill set, and eventually enough time, then you get to conscious competence where you really have to focus on the execution. Now with the barbell, that starts to slow you down, because when we talk about sport and on the field, we want to get eventually to unconscious competence, meaning we're good foot position, change of direction, etc. Because if we're thinking about our foot position when I got to hunt down an opponent, then I'm slower. So we want to break through it. And I imagine, and I felt as you were speaking and creating the scenarios and painting the picture where we're going to use these skills potentially in a dangerous situation where lives are on the line, we want to get to this unconscious competence where we're just doing the fundamentals very well, so that way we can focus on our downfield range.
Well, I love that, and we use the exact same model. We use it a little bit differently, but it's really nice to hear how you guys apply it, because it is strictly a formula, or I should say like a format that if you follow it, like the way I try to break it down for people is, and you use unconscious, we use subconscious, is we're trying to break it into our subconscious, the psyche aspect of it. We're trying to break it into that point where it becomes automated, and because you're absolutely right, when you are facing a 300-pound animal that wants to get past you, all of those things that you don't have to think about means that you can think about how you're going to defeat that guy as he's coming at you. And same thing with us. You know, it's the same deal. If I'm having to think about, I have to grip the gun, I have to clear the garment, I have to make sure I see my sight. If I have to think about any of that stuff, I'm not thinking about what actually may save my life, like movement or cover or, you know, working with a partner or things like that. And those are the things that, oh man, I really get wrapped around the axle with, because what I see to get to that subconscious or unconscious level is a process. Mm-hmm. And it's a linear progression. There's no like, it's just, you just got to put the work in. Mm-hmm. There's no way to get around it. There's no like secret back door to get to that subconscious level. If we got to that, maybe
You're
the
like,
download. Yeah,
I can do Kung Fu.
Yeah. But until then, there's no escaping the fact that you just have to put the work in.
Yeah.
There really isn't. And when you can get to that point where, and that's what I try to maybe not in every class, but occasionally I try to redirect a shooter to thinking about somebody that is at their peak level of performance. It could be an athlete, it could be a musician, could be whatever. But when they execute their skill, whatever it is, they make it look effortless. Yeah. They make it look like it's magic, right? And what I try to get across to people is don't you dare look at them and not appreciate the work that they put into doing that. And then don't think for a second that you're immune to that same amount of work to get to that level that they're at. Yeah. When you watch some of those athletes, even competitive shooters, watching them go, it's awesome. They're amazing. They're artwork, you know, at that point. But I'm knowledgeable enough to know what it took to get there. Mm-hmm. And so I try to help students recognize that. And, you know, we've tried to break it down. I've talked about this a little bit in some cases where, you know, like, since you mentioned jiu-jitsu, to use their ranking schedule, their ranking format is, you know, colored belts, you know, sure. But the problem with that, what people don't know is that it doesn't mean that you have to learn these 20 moves and you will move from white belt to blue belt.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing like that. And so, which is good for, I think, a lot of people, because then you're not focused on just trying to achieve those, and you're actually paying attention to the bigger picture, like what all is at stake there.
Well, for me, what was really helpful with jiu-jitsu was reading Saulo Ribeiro's book.
I love that book.
University Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And where it was like the white belt is the belt of survival.
Mm-hmm.
And when you master the ability to survive,
dude,
like when you can thwart everybody's defenses and like just survive,
yeah, now
you can move on to like blue belt, where it's like escapes.
So,
and then it like to me, as I was reading it, dude, that was so fucking impactful, to the point where like I even though I know we have a methodology book, but like, you know, the Power Athlete book that we've had, you know, on the hard drive that we've been, you know, talking about forever, it's pretty much done. It made me really realize how impactful that was for it to go, because now it kind of changed my model where I'm rolling, and I'm like, dude, my job is to survive this. Like yesterday we were doing like rear naked and like seatbelts.
Oh, nice.
And like having to basically just realize like, I'm probably not going to get out of this, but if I don't get choked in 3 minutes, I'm probably I'm winning,
dude.
And and then the minute that I started going for escapes, I kept getting fucking choked.
Yeah.
And then I came home and it looked like I had been like fucking, my neck was all tore up and shit. But it's true. Like every day I go in there, I'm not focused on submissions. I'm not focused on doing anything fucking badass. All I'm focused on is survival.
There's an interesting kind of dichotomy there. Like, and I love being able to kind of share that experience too, because what you learn from that experience is, like you were saying, how valuable, how important defense is, right? And the you know, I think all the greats emphasize that, and they make it your principal goal in the beginning. Is your number one job is to survive, but not just to survive on luck, but to survive on skill. So your defense has to be so good, and you know, the better the opponent, the better your defense has to be. So when you think about it from, like, at what point do you feel like you have earned the rank of a blue belt? You know, that is, you know, again, that's another harder question to answer. But in the shooting world, you know, when do you move from the beginner to the basic?
That's pretty interesting. Like, I mean, if you think, is there Okay, because you can't quantify it with rounds.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like we went to your course and we shot 1,000 rounds,
Yes.
which for those of you guys that have never done a shooting course is a fucking shit ton for most people. Like to come. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
Like most courses aren't gonna. And you were pretty damn close in your round count. I think I left with like maybe half a box, like
Because
10.
you sucked. You didn't shoot all. You didn't make it down on those drills.
Well, no, but you also calculate in when we have to, like, there's one in the mag or one in the pipe, and then we clear.
Well, what I do is I do best case. So you as a shooter that actually was not eliminated on any stage of any of those elimination matches, you made it through all of them. That's where the round count goes. So if you don't make it to one of the stages or you don't advance past a certain stage, then all the rounds.
That's why I had extra.
I got a lot left.
Well, but that's an interesting deal. Like, with the barbell and within training, and I'll let you guys in on a little secret. The stuff that I did with Jeff all those years ago was really foundation for grindstone.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was like the grindstone because Jeff had to travel a ton.
Yeah.
And so I needed him to be flexible enough. And at the time we were working with Bill Bradley. Hold on, let me turn this thing off. So we were working with Bill Bradley. I know. And I was working with Jeff about the same time, so I was able to almost test it on two different individuals. So it was pretty exciting in that way. But to bring it back, like with barbell training, we have weight in terms of proficiency. Like, have you reached a certain level of strength?
Correct.
Are there certain things that you can master?
Yeah.
And there's no way to short circuit the process. The time is the time. The work is the work.
It is.
But I also wonder with the shooting stuff, if people are like, well, I've shot 10,000 rounds this month.
For sure.
I should be. And you're like, well, yeah, but how many of them were just like, you're trying to bend the bullet like in the movie Wanted, or,
true.
Like how much are meaningful where you're under toolage and you're in an environment that's pushing you to be better?
So I've started this. My next book is actually trying to quantify that, to actually put that in concrete terms, or as concrete terms as I can get it. And so far, I've managed to map out most of them. And I'm using beginner, basic, intermediate, advanced, elite, right? So those are the 5 levels, if you will. And the hard part is that it's a pretty steep climb in the beginning, and then it's more of a plateau once you get to the back end, to the advanced and elite level. And so for most people that are looking to get into the sport or the art of shooting defensively, what I tell them is that you're going to need approximately 80 hours before you move from the beginner to the basic level. And in that 80 hours, you're going to fire approximately 3,500 rounds. And it's mapped out in a couple of different ways. For instance, 80 hours, you could take 5 16-hour classes, right? So that's one 16-hour class that you went to. You did 5 of those, and that would put you close to the 80 hours. And you would well exceed that 3,500. So the 3,500 is like a minimum. Mm-hmm. So you would well exceed that. And then we have milestones at each of those steps. Like, you should be able to complete this and to this standard to move on to the next one. And the interesting thing about it is, like, most everybody is still, according to what I'm looking at, the vast majority are still at the beginner level. Just really being, if we're being honest, the vast majority of people, and when I say 80 hours of formalized instruction or training. So you could either go to a two-day seminar, a 2-day class. You can go and do like a couple hours of private instruction. You can actually do some well thought out, planned professional development yourself. You can work with a group of other people that you go out there. So that's all part of it. It's not just you have to do 5 classes. I measured it based around some of the experiences and of watching other shooters, other students that we've kind of mentored through this process, and kind of like using them as the guinea pigs, if you will. And not all of them did classes. Some of them took they went to 1, maybe 2 classes, and then they started to really refine their game by working with somebody that knew what to help their weaknesses were. They knew what their weaknesses were from the classes. They got somebody that was good to help them with their weaknesses, and they used that to help supplement those 80 hours. And they did really good. And the interesting thing about watching those guys, and I've got about a dozen of those students that we've been watching, is how far above their peers they are by following this kind of like template. It's really interesting to see that. So, because it's not wasteful, it's efficient, it's long, it's 80 hours. That's if you did one class a year, that's 5 years, right? Or if you did maybe 2 classes a year, that's like 2.5 years. So that's like, it's time, but that's what we were talking about. It's a process. I did not get to those heavy lifts for like what? It's like a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a legitimate like 20. I remember it was like 24 months of like preparatory development work, dude. Like dead bugs, all the other fucking shit that we did, but just like isometric contractions, developing stability in the hand, finding the right positions, developing shoulder flexibility. I mean, all of those things. And then all of a sudden, like what was cool is we did all the work. And then you were like, holy shit, I'm fucking strong. And like he could do all this stuff. He's like, I feel like I'm capable now.
Yeah,
like, but
totally.
But there was a whole lot of like, and like everybody, you want to run before you walk. But if you don't do the preparatory work, so I know with the shooting stuff, it's such a perishable skill.
Yeah.
This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market.
We've built our online training business by partnering with Train Heroic and helping us deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training.
And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best tech and training, go to trainheroic.co/powerathletehq. And now back to the show.
That's the other thing. So like moving from the beginner to basic, there is this, just because you're at the basic level now doesn't mean you stay at the basic level. Like if you're not putting the work in to maintain that skill, then you potentially could fall back into the beginner level. And that would be determined by you're not able to meet the standards at the basic level. You are now only able to meet the standards at the beginner level. Mm-hmm. And that's because you're not maintaining that through, if you follow the process that we are laying out, then the reason why you're not meeting those standards is because you have stopped. It's not because you're not following the process. If you continue to follow the process, even if that process is elongated, because I don't know, I could have 2 people, I could have one person that has a lot of time on their hand, I could have another person that has almost 0 time on their hand.
Sure.
But if they're both putting in the same amount of work when they can, theoretically one person will meet those standards sooner than the other, but they're both going to meet them. And if they both maintain them at the same intervals that they're training at, then they'll it all comes out at the wash at the end. So it's interesting to kind of watch the progressions for people. And I'm sure you get to see this, a lot watching people in your field of expertise. And the thing that I like the most is when they, like you were saying, when all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm strong. When they can acknowledge, oh my God, I can actually shoot.
Well, fuck, if you got to shoot, I mean, like, let's say we lift weights for an hour a day.
Yeah.
If you had an hour a day of like dry firing 50 rounds, doing the drills, like doing your card stuff.
Yep.
I mean, shit, dude, like you would be, if you were doing that 5 days a week, I mean, within like 4 or 5 months, you would be fucking pretty far along.
It's true.
But the problem is like, like for me, I shoot like every 3 weeks when I'm driving by and I swing by and I shoot for 30 minutes, and it's like, but then I dry fire. So if I'm going to carry concealed, I make sure like, and I'm really glad too that this happened at the class. I learned how to shoot concealed from you. Mm-hmm. So like, the thumb and all this stuff. I mean, like, like being able to, like, when it's loose, pull it this way. I mean, all those things that you showed us, I've used because I never learned any other way. And then where people in the class that hadn't learned your stuff were like, well, I don't like this and this. And the one guy was like, I like to do this 2-hand. And you're like, well, what if you had to fight with one hand?
Yeah.
What if you had another guy on top of you and you had to get, your weapon engaged?
Yeah.
Do you have the skills? And I think that's one thing I think about all the time. Like, I mean, it'd be real great if you're just out there, but you might be in a defensive situation where, a dude comes into you and you're fucking bracing and having to, draw your weapon.
A lot of that, and that's a good point too, because I don't blame them per se. I think what they have is a very nearsighted view on reality. They're not thinking it through. And that's why I have to have that kind of train of logic drill with them where I kind of walk them through, well, what if you're in this scenario and you have your kid and you're holding your child in your arm, like I was that first time that I had to deal with that. Or what if you're injured and you don't have access to your arm? There's so many reasons and so many, the the point that I try to get across to people is like you can do it however you want. If you want to use 2 hands to clear your cover garment, go for it. But just realize that you're putting yourself at a significant disadvantage since most defensive gun uses are close.
Yeah.
And when they're close, the biggest mistake that people make is thinking that they'll have time and distance to actually clear their cover garment and get their gun out. When in reality,
they won't.
Probably not.
Which I learned at Craig's course.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I was within 7 yards of a dude, and he had a blue pistol in a holster, and he couldn't clear the garment before I fucking smashed him.
Yeah.
That was your profession for 10 years. It's called run blocking, John.
Yeah, but if we have to prepare for the fucking worst case scenario, like isn't like if
an ex-NFL lineman running straight at you, that's the worst case scenario.
I would agree with you on that.
You're like, okay, I'm at this fucking pistol class and this fucking gorilla shows up. It's like, it was funny. This dude was like, hey, were you a professional wrestler or something? I'm like, no, but I did play in the NFL for a decade. He's like, yeah, I figured you did something. You know?
You're just too big, too strong, too agile, too athletic. Yeah, fuck you. Yes.
So I get it, but like I think like for me and Jeff and I had a great conversation. One thing, Craig's class isn't a shooting course. I think he has shooting, so you develop proficiency, so he knows that people's shitting is all in one sock, right?
Yeah.
To like quote Dave Brewer. The one thing that was really fascinating for me was I had never really I just never had the scenarios hadn't really entered my mind.
True.
Like, okay, hey, you're standing there and I'm here, and this guy, like, I'll tell you this, the thing I left there with, just a side note, I'm a lot more nervous of a dude with a knife than a gun.
Oh yeah.
Because like in a defensive situation, a dude can fucking stab a knife, whereas going for the pistol is slow.
Yeah.
So it's almost to the point where like if a dude had a gun and it was undercover, I know I can cover the distance way faster, where if he was brandishing a knife, I'm going to fucking sprint the other way. I've seen like enough of those like stabby videos where I want no part of a knife. Like gun.
So Sean Connery in The Untouchables was wrong.
Yeah.
Leave it to an Irishman to bring a knife to a gunfight.
And we watched Craig showed a bunch of those videos, and it's like, you know, even a cop trying to get it out of the holster, dudes were able to get to the hand and fucking light the cop up, and he didn't have a defensive. So I think that also what I liked about Jeff's deal, especially clearing cover garment, using this arm to be able to push away, to be able to get distance, and now all of a sudden as I'm recovering, and I might who knows, I might stumble to the ground, get my pistol out, and then be able to shoot from on my back. Like that's a very real situation.
Oh, it's so true. And that was just that's our level 2 class. In the level 3 class, you do a lot of like what we consider to be the more practical side, And when we teach you that first method of to defeat methodology, it is ultimately to get you to the next one, which is where you're protecting your draw stroke, right? You use that weekend to protect or guard your draw stroke. And, then you start doing it from all different directions and positions and conditions and blah, 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 blah. And it's one of the things that I think people take for granted is that, and I've heard the term described as planning fallacy, meaning that they overestimate their abilities and underestimate the complications of the scenario. And so,
isn't that the majority of life?
Pretty much.
Where you basically oversold your abilities and under fucking
delivered.
Yeah, under delivered.
Yeah, 100%. But this was interesting because there's like science behind this. It's got a name, planning fallacy. It's like, fuck, dude, this is like legit. So the majority of people have this like as a daily mindset in a sense. Like, we overestimate, like for instance, if you're going to drive to, you're going to head down to the range and you're going to leave in the morning and you're going to say, I'm going to meet Tex there. It's going to take me, 30 minutes to get there. I'll meet you there at 9:30. Right. But really what you should have said was, shit, this is Austin. I got traffic. It's in the morning. I'll meet you there at 9:45. And if I get there early, it's great. But that's the thing. We're kind of like using the idea that the best case scenario is going to happen. We're hoping the best case scenario is what we get to deal with. It's like that roulette wheel. Oh, just land on the best case for me. There's 99 bad cases, but I want it to land on the one good case. That's me. That's what I'm hopeful for, And the reality is that you've got 99 bad cases that you're most likely going to have to deal with, but you're not planning to deal with them. And that's the mindset shift that I think a lot of people make when they get put in those situations. Like you go to, like we have a force on force class that's concealed carry only. Everything is all from concealed carry. And a lot of people are put in situations where it's like, like just watching the thought process grind to a halt and them literally being the proverbial deer in the headlights in the middle of the scenario. And we have to coach our role players that when you see this, and you'll see it in some of the students, if we have a class of like, let's just easy number 10, you're going to see that deer in the headlights in probably 40% of the students are just going to be like, and you have to almost like soft toss them the rest of the scenario so they can have a positive out of it. So they don't just get pummeled by it, because that could also be really self-defeating. And when we expose them to these more like, and some of it is more emotional, because it's like, holy shit, I never thought about some fucking giant ass man come running at me from 7 yards. How am I going to deal with this? Right? They just haven't thought it through. But the value, the benefit to doing that is that it forces you to rethink all your techniques, all of your gear, all of your training, everything that you're doing. Like, instead of going for 2 hands, now your default is 1, because the probability that you will be close is high. The probability that you might have to guard will be high. The probability that you might have to shield will be high. So when people finally come to that crossroads, it's like, whew, thank God we're here. Finally, now we can actually train. Now we can actually get down to the nitty gritty and actually work hard. Until then, it's like, I have to sell it I'm trying to sell you ice cream on the Nile River. It's like, fuck, it's hard.
Well, we battle that a lot in the world of strength and conditioning, because there's so much information out there. It's so easily accessible.
Right.
And we refer to it as getting a position that you can learn. So we bring
Tell me more about that.
We bring coaches. We establish a baseline. This is our online course. So they go through our methodology. We cite every resource. If they want to continue down the rabbit hole, it is provided there for them. But we take Russian literature and apply some senses of humor to it and make it more applicable to their current day, and design the course so that they're applying the information as they're learning it, and it's starting to avail. Okay, this is the coordination, this is the setup, this is the execution, the pitfalls. So by the time they finish the course, 3 months or so, then they're in a position that they can learn. So they understand the basics that are going to help their athletes. They understand the foundation of the Power Athlete methodology. And now we can start to have higher level conversations that are still performance related versus, tables and charts and percentages.
Nice. I like that.
Is it because there's so much information at our fingertips that it almost becomes like a paralysis through analysis? Where I know this happens in the training space. It happens within our space, and I know it happens within Jeff's space, because now all of a sudden there's like this interesting component of like, now there's a tool at which is going to allow me to port through. So like now I have guns, and like this gun will allow me to be better. So now you have like all of these different. Shit, dude. Like everybody in your class was shooting something different. And so like everybody's in this different thing. And that first time that I went out to that course out in Angeles Crest with you, there were dudes that were changing guns like they were fucking guitar techs at the Rolling Stone show. Every evolution, these guys were like, this one's not shooting well in this, because it wasn't a concealed class. It was actually like a pistol class. So these dudes had all these like race rigs, it looked like a skeleton that you pop the gun out of, and all this wacky shit. And these guys had red dots and this and this. I was like, the fuck is all this stuff? And I remember this guy got butthurt when I told him. I was like, yo, man, you probably should have just got a gym membership with like half of one of these pistols.
I did want to talk about that, how we can get there, how big of a limiting factor fitness is for some of these guys.
Don't get me started on that one, man.
Well, your course was long and it was demanding physically. But like it's not as if it wasn't like we were running 100-meter fucking sprints.
No.
So, but you got to be fairly durable to be out there and to be able to move and step and do all that. But the course the first one that I went to with you, which was that it wasn't a concealed, it was just I think it was like Pistol 2. Yeah. We were fucking running. So do you remember we were doing all those sprints back and forth?
Mad Bullet Dash. I remember that.
And those dudes were absolutely fucking destroyed.
Yeah. Or when so we might as well like unpack that genie from the bottle there on the fitness stuff, because I just had this conversation, and we may even talked a little bit about it. I just had this conversation with Mark Ripto on my podcast about, I'll get these students that'll ask me, what drill should I be practicing to get better? What gun should I get to be better? And in my head, I was thinking, well, what you need to do is just get stronger. But that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear they need this drill, they need this gun, they need this number of rounds fired, whatever. And so Mark gave me some shit about you didn't tell them what they needed to hear. You told them what they wanted to hear. And I'm like, I know, there's also the business side of this, sure. But he's absolutely right. And so where does the fitness come in? I will tell you straight up that the more fit you are, obviously the more durable, resilient you are to survive a real deadly force encounter. But where it has extreme value is in your ability to stay, or a better way to put it is your ability to stay focused mentally. Because if you are physically under duress, your mental capacity to stay focused on the simple tasks of like just aligning the sights and squeezing the trigger are severely diminished with time. Like, when you do 1,000 rounds in 2 days, you are going to find that fatigue is going to set in. But it's not physical fatigue. It's the mental fatigue, sure, of just having to think, oh shit, that's right. Because whether it's by accident or on purpose, you have suboptimal habits that lead to bad outcomes, right? So that's the whole point. We're trying to change those. In order for you to change those habits, you have to be focused on trying to change them, or they're just going to continue to be repeated and further embedded into your system, into your technique. And then it's going to be even harder to try to get rid of them. So the more fit you are from a training perspective, all right, the higher your attention to detail, the higher your capacity for attention to detail. And when you have that high level of capacity for attention to detail, your ability to apply the corrective strategies that were given you is higher. Your success rate at seeing those changes is sooner. So you see the positive effects of what I'm telling you much sooner. And then your ability to ride that wave, that wave of positivity throughout the rest of the course and continue to see positive growth throughout the rest of the course is truly impressive. When you don't have that, it is harsh. It's a beat down. Like, guys get home, and I'm not saying that I'm not tired too. I get tired. I'm tired just focusing on trying to teach you guys this stuff.
Well, it's also emotionally.
Yeah.
We taught a lot of seminars, and the emotional component of trying to get people not to kill themselves. Yeah, I can't imagine your deal, especially with
that's a whole other ballgame. Yeah. But when I can have a student that has a, let's just say, above average fitness condition, then I know that they will, not only do I know that they will have the mental capacity to thwart the fatigue condition, but they'll also have just all the other the positive attributes that go along with being an athlete, being a physically fit specimen that has that athleticism at their core. That's so valuable. Like, when I have had, whether they be professional athletes like yourself or Olympic athletes, just working with them is like such a pleasure, because they understand it, they get it, they've already reached their peak in their field of expertise. Me coming in and just working with them on these little things it's just so easy. I had this one. It was back when we were doing, we were still doing 2-day rifle classes. And for a female to come through a rifle class, that's tough, especially when the rifles are heavy. That's why another, 8 pounds is like really pushing it. No more than 8 pounds, 7 pounds or even 6.5 pounds is ideal. So I had a young lady come, she was going to attend the rifle class, but she wanted the day before to do a private. And she was a gifted athlete. Physical, she was a CrossFitter, but also a competitive power lifter. So she had skills in that sense, and she had won some titles for her region and whatnot. So she was legit. And working with her on taking her already above average physicality and then just applying it towards learning how to shoot, simple, really easy. I wouldn't say it was a walk in the park, because there's that initial breakthrough threshold where you got to break through, and then once you break through, it's like now we're smooth sailing, right? And so when it came to the rifle class, it was awesome to watch how well she performed amongst her peers who had maybe a similar kind of setting as far as firearm exposure. She grew up with brothers and father that were into firearms, so she kind of knew how to shoot of sorts. She knew how to be safe with them at least, but she didn't really understand the aspects of that, the sport itself. And then, man, it was just awesome to watch that. I mean, I just sat back there, was like, I'm not gonna lie, there's that little shit-eating grin of pride, like, yep, there, that's what it works. That's how it works right there. She just outperformed everybody. I mean, she didn't shoot. She wasn't the top shooter in the class, but she was, for an entry-level person coming into there and just dominating it from both a physical and performance point of view. Awesome. So I love that. I mean, if I could do that, it's so, even when I would go back and work with my guys, or even any other counterpart, it was always awesome to watch that, because that physicality was there. I didn't have to worry about it, and what that meant was that we could bypass a lot of stuff and get right into the nitty gritty, and that made the training much more valuable for me, but also for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing Mark Ripito is really good at, and I love Rip to death, is he's really good at handing out the poison pill.
The poison pill.
Yeah, whereas you just need to be stronger. And I'm like, yeah, I remember Rip and I talking, and he's like, aerobic capacity and cardio is bullshit. Just lift weights faster. And I'm like, I really think you got to build that big aerobic base. It's got to be a foundation of both of those. So I'm excited to listen to your podcast.
Oh yeah. We didn't go too much into that kind of stuff. I'm hopeful that we will in the future, get into some of that stuff, because I think this was just a nice kind of feeling out process, and I think he really liked the discussion. We had good discussion. One of the things that I loved about our discussion, and I know that you can appreciate this as trainers, is you have made, if not every mistake, you've come close to making every mistake there is within moving the barbell. Just doing it for as long as you have been doing it, you've made those mistakes. And as a result of having made those mistakes, you've had to learn how to correct them. You take that information, and that becomes your corrective strategies that you pass to your clientele, your students, your coaches, and all the other people that you come into contact with. So you have a faster way of reaching the student who is struggling, because you have already struggled. You've already been there and done that. And so the experience that you bring, not only through the capacity of what you teach, but the experience of your failures and how to overcome them was huge. And that's what I was like, that conversation, I was like, I think that's probably going to be the gold nugget of the podcast, is that conversation. And which is the one that we led with. We led right into that, just boom, dropped it right on him right there. And he was just he was off to the races at that point. So I think that kind of helped, is that we talked about really salient points that matter to him, but also matter to a lot of other people in various industries and whatnot. That's applicable no matter who you are.
Well, there's there's an interesting piece where I'd like it. And, you always think about Chris brought up the 4-part model, but you go through this thing where you make mistakes, and you don't know what mistakes you're making until all of a sudden you kind of get almost a little clairvoyant in such a way to be and you look back and think, oh shit, dude, here's mistakes. And then you kind of progress it and you make more and more. And, I think that if you ever get to the point where you're afraid of making a mistake, it ends up hindering you. And
For sure.
But then you're I don't know. It's kind of hard to visualize for me, but even in the shooting stuff, when we were at the course, still getting feedback on things that I know that I was actively looking to do. Kind of something that I do is I constantly ride my trigger up on the top part, and I know it pushes shots, whereas I try to angle it down.
Yes. And
we've been talking about that for years. Yes. And when I draw the pistol, I physically try to push my finger down into the trigger guard. Yeah. And I still wasn't doing it. And you were like, dude. And I felt like, damn, I'm we've been talking about this. It's actually part of my process where I come out, I actually do this into the trigger. And you're like, no, you keep fucking doing it. And I was like, God damn it. So like even when you're trying to like, you know the mistakes that you're making, and I can see where like my groupings were. So I knew the mistake because do you remember you used to have that diagnostic? Where it was like where the rounds were hitting, like you're know, too far in the finger. So I mean, like I know exactly down to the left. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I was still doing it, and I was trying to correct it and not correcting it.
Oh, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It's super frustrating. And there's like, so there's a couple of things that I talk about with regards to this, the corrective strategies. And I try to, you know, in the Carry 2 class, it's not necessarily a marksmanship centric course, so we don't really get too deep into this. It's implied that you should have a minimum standard.
Is there a Carry 1 course?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't typically do them on the road much, just because the return on investment is better for the Carry 2. You know, we're putting people in the field that's a little bit more competent with a Carry 2. So I'd rather spend my time there. Not that I don't appreciate Carry 1, but we also have the Carry 3, which is the force on force stuff where the integrated combatives. And so that's the next block. So I can only focus so many hours into a couple of these programs. So I choose the top half versus the bottom half.
Sure.
But when it comes to the learning process, and I try to instill in students in like a level 2 class, it's marksmanship centric, which is you need to be prepared to fail, and you're going to fail, and you're going to fail a lot. And it's not so much the failure. I mean, as long as you're safe as you're making these failures, the key thing about these failures is that you need to look at them as guides. They're going to tell you what you're doing wrong. Like when you say, oh, low left, I know exactly what I'm doing. And so what I try to get across to people is like, don't look at, you know, like manage your expectations about what the outcome from this course is going to be. You may have an error that is easy to fix, and luck was on your side. Okay. Then you might be one of these other groups of individuals that have been doing the same mistake for years, hundreds, if not thousands of rounds to reinforce it. And it's just going to take time. But what you have to do in order to start the process of replacing that habit with your new habit is that you have to identify what it is that you want to change. You have to intercept it before it happens. You have to replace it with the preferred movement or activity, and then you have to repeat it. So identify, intercept, replace, and repeat. And what happens is when you don't know where, you might know what you're doing wrong, but the intercept point, where you need to focus to make that change, that's what's critical. It's the intercept point, because if you don't intercept the old technique, you'll never be able to replace it with a new technique. And that's where, you know, when people are talking about, I'm frustrated, I'm not changing, I'm not getting better. I'm like, okay, well, slow down. Let's hold on just for a second. Are you able to know what, you know, we've already identified what they're doing wrong. Are you able to, and this is the other problem, are you able to see the error in real time? So if you can't see the error in real time, you're never going to be able to correct it. Like I can tell you what you're doing wrong, right? And I can tell you what you need to do to correct it. But until you see the error happening in real time, it's not gonna really change. I mean, it's just like at that point, it's like craps. You're rolling the dice. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. So to increase the odds of changing, you need to be able to see it in real time, which generally means that you have to be moving at a speed that you can see each step being performed. So just like any other, you know, barbell movement, you have to see each step. You have to visualize that step being performed flawlessly, or as close to flawless as necessary in order for you to be successful. You know, the heavier the weight, the closer to flawlessness you need to be. The faster the speed of shooting, the closer to flawlessness you need to be. So it's the same kind of theory in that sense. And by managing their expectations and encouraging them to be able to see the error in real time, it actually, a lot of times, the moment they can start to see the error in real time, they are already correcting it without even knowing it. Because they've had to put that much attention to detail in what they're doing. And so in a roundabout way, by encouraging them to be able to see the error as they're making the error, they start to pay attention to that error, and then they automatically start to change it. Even though there's a system in place to do it, once they see it, poof, they start to change it.
That's what I did appreciate about the 25 yards. Because that little mistake that we're making over that distance, it's very apparent.
Well, it's pretty interesting. If you shoot up close, you can almost will the bullet where you want it.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I know that my mechanics were off, but I was almost able to like will it where I wanted it to go. And then all of a sudden, when you take like 15, like the willing is more of like an ask, and then you go out to like 25. And you're just fucking praying.
Begging.
You're like, please. And what's so fucking frustrating for me is like, as I draw it out, I like, I'm pretty good on like, in terms of like mechanics. Like once I develop the mechanic, like I can do it the same way exactly.
Absolutely.
Whereas like, like you start watching people and you're like, man, like every fucking rep is different. Whereas like, so for me to be able to draw and push the gun out and then like know where it cracks off and have everything going through my line in the checklist and not have it hit. Then you start second guessing, and then you're like,
"It's my gun."
My gun. No, I know it's not the gun.
I know you do, but
I know it's not the gun.
Yeah.
But then you start second guessing it, and you're like, "Well, it's not like I have a B switch that I can go to. Yeah. I have to try to fucking work within the framework at which I'm at."
Oh my god!
So then you're looking at it, you're like, "All right, like, is my finger right? And then am I getting too deep onto the trigger?
Yep.
Like, where am I at?" So then you start making these small adjustments. And then the problem is when you're shooting 25, there's no instant feedback.
No.
Because I can't see it and it's not steel. So then I'm like shooting and I'm like, oh yeah, that's on the money. And then as you're walking up, you're like, I don't see any light in the black. And then you start scanning and then you're like, fuck. So it's kind of a mind fuck in that way.
Yeah, that's true too.
Whereas if we were shooting steel,
you
could like see it hit. You'd hear the automatic rapport. So it was good. And I just knew that if we didn't keep laughing and cracking jokes and having fun, it would just fucking go to negative town. And to the point where like I was even trying to like joke around with the other guys and I could see them and I'm like, you know what? Like as long as you don't fucking shoot your dick off, you're fine. And then I told the one dude, I was like, just shoot over the fucking deal and just try to miss it completely so that Jeff won't see it.
That's what I was thinking to stop getting disqualified. How about if I don't even hit the target? Yeah, it's not a miss.
Just shoot it. Or the other one, which he said, is if you shoot somebody else's target, you're fucking out. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to be very funny when I'm shooting Tex's target.
Well, it's funny because I was aiming at yours. That DQ that you had, I was way off.
Dude, if you fucking shot my target, I would fucking laugh and be like, well played, sir.
I have a story about that. I was working with this. I was doing a class for a department in Northern California, and they had half the class was the firearms trainers, and the other half were the SWAT team guys. And well, no, it was only 2 or 3 guys from the SWAT team. Sorry, and one of the guys was the team captain or the team leader. I can't remember if they call him a captain or not, but. In the class, in that rifle class, that was a rifle 3 class, which is a much more challenging course. The last drill, what ended up happening was somebody shot on his target. It was a complete accident, but somebody did shoot on his target and put a shot in the white. We counted up all the shots. We knew who it was. There was 1 shot missing from one target, an extra shot on this other target. It was in the white, and he DQ'd. And as a result, he didn't pass it. That was enough to put him below 80. Right. And so he was pissed, and I thought for sure, because he was vetting the class, and I thought for sure, well, I'm not going to get a call from this guy. But like a week later, he reaches out. He's like, hey, that was a great class. I really think our team will benefit from this. I want to bring you out. Great. Cool. Like the next year we go out and we do the same classes, same fucking drill. Somebody shot on his target, DQ'd him again, and he failed the second time. He was so fucking pissed. It was, and I think that time it was purposeful.
Yeah, because you told the story about it.
Well, no, we didn't make it a big deal, but we went ahead and we did an audit of everybody that was near him, and we found out whose round was missing, and we figured out that it was this guy's, and it was one of his guys from the team that was there, so he knew about it. There was 3 of them. And then there was 2 others watching, so they knew what had happened. So I'm pretty sure that it was relayed
by design.
Yeah, it was relayed to the team that this happened, and so they were like, "Well, we'll just fuck him one more time because why not, right?"
When you shoot somebody else's target, you never get it in the I mean, if you shot it in the black, it's fine. But then people are like, "So you got to almost just throw a random shot."
For sure, and absolutely, and it sucks. But there was one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to kind of hit on. Ooh, damn, I got lost in my train of thought there. I can't remember now. Fuck. Well, the 25. You were talking about the 25. And one of the things that I like about shooting at the 25 is that it creates an environment of honesty where I don't have to listen to your bullshit. You don't have to feed me any of your bullshit because it's either a hit or a miss. You either got your hits or you didn't. And if you didn't get your hits, cool. No big deal. Let's figure out why. Why is more important than you stroking your ego and trying to create this image for yourself that is false.
I call it the thin candy shell to protect your ego. Where you're like, I need a thin candy shell. Whereas I knew I missed and you just talking shit to me. I'm like, I know it sucks. I have zero fucking qualms about this. Now, if I was fucking laser beaming them in there and it was like a 3 fucking inch group at 25 with 5 rounds, I would have been like, eat a dick. I would have been talking shit to everybody.
A whole bag of dicks.
I would have been fucking running my mouth. But fuck. I mean, it's we had that one cop dude that was shooting those fucking laser beams.
He was doing great,
but he shoots. You could tell he shoots a lot.
He did, and one of the guys made I ran into one of the guys after the class, and he made a comment. He's like, if that guy can't pass, then why? And he just had he was disappointed that guy failed and thought
he got a 70.
No, he didn't fail. No. Excuse me. He got final score was a 79.
Yeah.
But where he
80s passing though, right?
80s passing.
Yeah.
Yeah. His mistake was he missed a few shots that he shouldn't have. But the reason why he missed them was because they were far enough outside of his skill set that he couldn't rely on that subconscious competence that he had to actually be conscious to be competent, and he wasn't. And as a result, those misses, which they weren't DQs, they were just misses, but the cumulative effect of those misses caught up to him.
Yeah. Because
it's not just one test. There's 9 tests in the class.
Oh, I thought it was 3 quals.
There are a total of 9 that you shoot.
9?
Yeah.
Okay.
But and that's why I tell everybody on day 1, just assume every round is a graded round. Just assume every shot you fire, there's a test assigned to it. That way I don't have to listen to you bitch and complain.
Well, but also in law enforcement, he's shooting out of a holster for the majority of time, and now you're asking him to shoot concealed.
Right. So there's that too. Absolutely. And he's a extremely competent shooter, and he even as an offline debrief to me, he commented about how his shooting at the distance was gravely below his expectations for himself. And how he really was hoping, he was really kind of disappointed in that. And he, there are some shooters that have a solid skill set on the marksmanship stuff, and they're taking in all the knowledge from the concealed side. And there are others that don't, and they have to try to, they have to just try to muddle their way through. In this case, one of the things that he took away was, and I talked to a few students about some of the errors that we were seeing, because some of them are just easy errors, low-lying fruit that we can easily kind of address. And I was talking to somebody near him, I think, I can't remember now, and they were really struggling, real struggle bus for them at the 25. And I mentioned a couple of things that they needed to do, and one of them was to grip the gun with your pinkies, right? Not necessarily with your hand, but grip the gun with your pinkies. And we go into detail as to why that works in the classes. But, he basically came back to me and he's like, I overheard that comment. I didn't put any value in it because I thought I was doing okay. But truthfully, I was maybe 50% at the 25-yard line, and that's what cost me on this. And I'm like, you're right. It absolutely was. Inside of the 10-yard line, you smoked it. Yeah. The 15, you were probably like 80%, but at the 25, you were more like 50. And he's like, I'm going to be working on that change to my grip to bolster up my 25 yards and beyond, because again, we don't know what the distance is. The best thing that I've tried to relay to people is that you're training for an unknowable event. The only known that you have is your skill. That's the only thing that you take into that gunfight is what your skill level is.
Well, the one thing, and this is probably from playing football because with fucking yard marks, like I'm real good at distances.
Yeah.
I can be like, oh, that's about 25. That's about 10. That's about 20. Like I'm pretty good to the point where I knew your cones. I was like, no, this isn't 10. And then that's why I kept saying this is cattywampus because we're fucking off. But I think sometimes people struggle a little bit with that. But like the one McQuilkin I kept seeing was kept riding his fingers on the slide. Thumb was here, and then he had his finger up on the slide, which prevented him from like really fucking getting the death grip. And you know what? I mean, to the point where when I squeeze that thing, I think about like I imagine if this thing was fucking soft, that I would actually bend my hands and squeeze the fucking mag in place. Yeah. Like that's kind of where I'm like trying to roll and squeeze this whole thing. And the cue about squeezing the pinkies was really good. Yeah. Because then what it did is because I was so focused on here that it actually evened up my grip.
Exactly.
But also shooting that Glock 19, the fucking grip is short.
Yeah.
So then it's like you're kind of pulling it at the bottom.
But it all works out. I mean, because that's where the leverage points are. The further away from the fulcrum you are, the more leverage you'll have. The more power, the more force you're applying away from the lever, the more power you're going to have. So it all works out. But that was a great kind of takeaway from the class from a well-developed shooter, somebody that had good skills. And it was also very valuable for me to see that there are still plenty of areas of improvement for all shooters of every caliber, good or bad, or in Tex as well.
Well, I did like the fact that you told Tex that he had a limp-wristed shooting style. that was reducing in fucking light strikes.
Yeah, it was.
I fucking hadn't laughed. Dude.
Well, okay.
I'm real Dante with
no, but I think like just like it's not it's so interesting like you get to this point where you're like squeezing this motherfucker as hard as you can, and then like looking over, and I think maybe over time you just kind of loosen the grip.
Yeah, it's so true.
Whereas
I'm looking down range.
You got all these other
for all these different
balls
things
that you're trying to battle. You're trying to juggle these balls in the air and
not
some
shoot
of them
your dick
fall
off.
Yeah.
Which is
and yelling at the non-moving target.
No, I dude, the same shit happened. I mean, like the only thing I can equate it to is like in boxing is you're setting up and you're kind of in this flow, and then all of a sudden the dude hits you with a fucking like fucking
just rocks you.
Yeah, like hits you with an overhand right. And you're like, yep, I was expecting a jab, and this dude just fucking knocked me out with an overhand right, or like hits you with something, or in jits where all of a sudden now you're like, hey, I'm playing guard, and the dude fucking chokes you with like something, and you're like,
didn't see that coming.
No, and you know what? That was the straight punch. So I think in that same thing, like the process of like being able to come through, draw the pistol, bring it out, as you squeeze the thing, bring your elbows together, pin the elbows to the side, press out, drop and retract the shoulder blades, and shoot from the lats, and then manage the recoil, all while trying to not look like a fucking asshole and throw shots at 25 yards.
Or shoot your dick off.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about, what if this is real world?
Yeah.
Like,
did that go through your mind?
Oh yeah. Well, why am I taking this course?
Well, no, shit, dude. I mean, as many fucking podcasts as we've done, like the idea of skill acquisition, I always think if all of a sudden like the situation happened, I would almost want to like mentally be in the idea that like like, hey, I know that's a paper target, so I'm set up here. I'm going to draw out the exact same.
So imagine the perp as a paper target.
100%. So I think what happens is that people get into these situations and they see people moving and yelling, and you almost have to like calm the mechanism, fucking focus on it. And you know what? The draw stroke comes up, you bring it out, and I'm just punching paper. And you know what? If I miss my 8-inch and I get him in the liver, it's a good shot too. So that I can't fail.
I shoot to kill, John.
I think you should have a little dot for the liver shot. That's a fucking win. But I would think, because I've played like every time you put on if you're going to carry conceal. Jeff brought up a great point about like if you don't feel confident in your gunfighting abilities, don't fucking wear the gun.
Yeah.
Like, don't go out there thinking you're going to fucking you haven't trained and you're going to somehow draw this thing and be John Wick. And next thing you know, you're fucking doing judo moves and fucking hitting dudes with the barrel. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So like, that's a big thing. Like if you're not going to train with the gun and you're not going to be proficient, don't fucking just run.
Yeah.
And you know, don't be the guy like we were talking about at the course that there was that active shooter at the mall where that kid got 8 out of 10 shots at like 40 yards.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, that's a fucking ballsy shot to shoot in a crowded place.
But so the actual distance was disputed. They're waiting for the final incident report to be released. It's still far, but it wasn't exactly 40.
Okay, so
it's still long.
Well, let's say 25.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a fucking long shot.
So I mean, he 8 out of 10 kill shots on a dude at 25.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty ballsy shot.
I mean, kudos to that guy. He made a choice to intervene, which is something that not a lot of people would probably have made. He made a choice to intervene in a really challenging scenario where distance was present, and again, it goes to the point of you just don't know what your gunfight is.
Was he shooting a subcompact?
Probably. Most concealed carry guns are.
Yeah.
But I mean, so back to Texas limp wristing, and it's a term. That's an actual term that we use in the industry.
Yeah,
so
it's also from Revenge of the Nerds.
Is it really?
When you don't remember when they're going through the whole thing in the Olympics and they're like, Wormser is a master of aerodynamics. He's developed the javelin to go along with Lamar's limp-wristed throwing style. and you don't remember, for those of you guys that
remembered it now,
right? And do you remember he's like going as he's running, and the fucking javelin is bouncing up and down, and he throws it. It's like, and he like wins the fucking.
I remember that
for
now.
the Greek Olympics.
Holy fucking shit! Oh my god, that just brought me so much joy. Oh
dude,
wow!
So when you said it, I thought you were basically fucking dropping a Revenge of the Nerds because
that's how bad I did not know that.
So my brother and I, it's our favorite movie. It's been our favorite movie forever. We've seen it like hundreds of times.
Oh my god!
We quote it all the time. That and Caddyshack. And
yeah.
So when all of a sudden I'm sitting there and you break out this like
I gotta watch one of those tonight now.
And I was like Lamar Luttrell. I mean, like did Wormser design this gun to go around with your limp wristed shooting style? And dude, for those of you guys who haven't seen Revenge of the Nerds, pull it up on YouTube. Go through, look at it. Lamar Luttrell's like, Jack Black dude wearing like, it's just
You got to watch the movie. It's a shame that movies like that aren't made anymore. There's no way a movie like that would be made these days.
Fuck.
But
no, dude.
But we have that as a historical record.
So my brother's a criminal defense attorney. We sat there last time we watched it, and he's like, "Do you realize how many felonies and how many laws are broken in this movie? They like broke in to the girls' place,
the dorm, the panty raid.
They the panty raid. They set up cameras. They were watching it.
So much bad.
He's like, there's so many fucking like I would.
The good old days.
He's like, my clients would go to jail forever for this. But as we're going through it, and he says it's part of your limp-wristed shooting style. That's why I was fucking dying. I was like, did he just organically drop Revenge of the Nerds, Lamar Luttrell on you?
I wish I was that cool. I will be from now on. I will be from now on, though.
And now you understand why I was laughing.
Oh, fuck, it was. So, anyhow, the term is a result of the wrist being basically flaccid, right? And so without there being...
You don't say.
I use that term special for you, Dex. But without there being rigidity or stiffness, the slide cannot reciprocate completely, and so what ends up happening is that you get a failure to eject, or you get a failure to load.
Well, he was getting like primer strikes. So
what was happening was that the slide wasn't fully going back into battery, which is the third part. It doesn't have enough energy to fully travel. The recoil spring does, you add to the effects, high volume round count, and dirty gun and dry gun, and it just exasperates that situation. So the remedy for that is to make sure that the wrist is indeed locked, so that it forms a wall, if you will, so that the slide can reciprocate fully, and then that problem goes away. So we see that with we see that, I would say, with a lot of newer shooters. So it's not a surprise that you did that, but it's also something that is one of the easiest remedies, because the remedy just like crush it.
Yeah.
Just crush it. And because like trying to tell somebody you need to squeeze with this much PSI on that thing is like ridiculous.
Well, the other one you gave me years ago was like, and I remember you were like, the your offhand, when you bring it through, like this is the fucking vice grip.
Yeah.
Like get a good purchase on the weapon, have it there, and then bring this like the fucking vice grip. And I try to literally squeeze that motherfucker as hard as I can, to the point where at the end I was like I had like a whole bunch of like rub marks on my fingers. Like my hands were fucking sore because I was squeezing that.
There are three critical junctures that we talk about. The first is going to be the pinky, the pinky pressure. The second is going to be the heel pressure, so pressing in with the heels, which is what you're talking about. And the third is going to be the wrist engagement. And when all three of those are formulated with just a modicum of skill, the results that you see literally are impressive. Because at that point, what you do, so why is that important for those that are interested? If you want to get to become a fast shooter, a lot of times people will tell you that you just need to go fast and pull the trigger fast, right? Which, in my opinion, is the worst thing that you could do. Sometimes there is this implication, and we can talk about that later, but most of the time, somebody telling somebody just to go fast. Like, there's this thing about, there's a phrase that people hate these days, which is smooth is fast kind of thing. Yeah. So people hate that phrase now.
Why? Smooth is fast, or fast is smooth?
Yeah. So the reason is that, well, you should just go fast. Right. And the way I equate that, my response to that is like, oh, okay, then just go ahead and put 225 on the bar and try to snatch that.
Or
that's how that equates to it.
I had the opportunity to go to Mid-South.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing those guys shoot, I knew exactly, because they use that phrase, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Watching those guys shoot,
it
was like a personification of
absolutely
this, to the point where, like, you get professional soldiers that are like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like these just guys, like, this is incredible.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's all they do.
Exactly. So when again, I lost my train of thought, but when you are shooting like so fast that what ends up happening is that you're not shooting to your potential at that point, in my opinion. Where you begin to shoot to your potential is when you can start to see your sights, which is called sight tracking. So when you start to see your sights as the gun is discharging and recoiling, you're literally watching the sights move, right? And they kind of never leave your frame. And we call it an eye box. They never really leave your eye box. And the key is, like, if you were to take your hands and extend your hands, this little 3x5 card is an eye box. And my goal is to keep my front sight inside that eye box throughout all my shooting. Mm-hmm. All right. So if I do that, what ends up happening, what that implies is that the sight is no longer rising. The sight is now cycling. All right. And as the sight cycles, I can continue to track it. So now I'm just tracking the sight, and I'm moving the sight as it's moving itself. And as I move it inside the target zone for that next shot. So I'm pulling the trigger to fire that next shot, not because I'm fast on the trigger, but because I'm faster on my sight. Mm. All right. Now, to get that, you have to have that crush grip. Without that crush grip, you'll never see your sights. You'll
know what the front end is going to be
exactly.
bouncing.
It's too grave. It's just too much to ask for just about any shooter to see that. Yeah. Even like if a good shooter were to like just pinky grip that, just like grip it with just two fingers, he could probably still track the sights, but the average shooter's not going to be able to do that. So the goal behind that crush grip, and again, the reason why we engage the pinkies, engage the heels and the wrist, is that what we're trying to do is create a vice-like grip that allows that sight to stay inside that sight box so that I can then start to see the sight. Because the moment, there's 3 stages of development for a lot of shooters. The moment they see the sight for the first time, the moment they see the sight in real time, meaning multiple, it's just like, wow. And the moment they control the sight while they're shooting. So think of it this way. The first one is I'm shooting, I pull the trigger, and all of a sudden I got this snapshot of where my sight was on the target. And it was the coolest thing. It's like, wow, that's so awesome. I saw, and I go down, and sure enough, there's a shot exactly where the dot was when the shot broke. Right. The second stage is now it's more like a movie. It's more like a video. Instead of it being a snapshot, it's a video that I'm actually watching everything happen. And the best way that I can explain it is like you're staring into fire, a flickering flame, and you're just mesmerized by it. You're just like, whoa. And the more you pull the trigger, the more you see that sight. And so that's why we do some of the higher round count drills, like 5, 7, 10 round drills, is because it promotes the ability to track your sights when you have everything else, when you do all the other lead up work. And then the third one is when you actually control the sight, meaning that the sight, I'm willing wherever I want the sight to go in the recoil is where it goes. And that's and that means that I'm not shooting exactly, like I don't have to put everything on top of like a small hole. Like I'm not trying to shoot for a 1-inch group at that point. Where I get fast is where I use the entire target zone. So in this case, 8 inches. So now I'm like the shot during the shot, when the shot is fired and I track my sight, I'm seeing the sight over here. I fire the shot. I saw next shot here, next shot's here, next shot's here, next shot's here. Like I'm willing the shot to go off where I want it because I can see it in real time. It's fucking cool as shit when it happens.
Man, I really enjoy shooting a red dot on a pistol.
Yeah.
A
lot of people do.
I like bringing it out, and as soon as I bring it up and to be able to see like the target, and then be able to like all of a sudden see the red dot come over where I want it, and then just press play. Yeah. It's because we shoot the rifle with red dots. Yeah. Same thing, like 2 eyes. I bring the red dot up where I want it, and then just press play, and like that to me, like the dual learning. Whereas now, I mean, but the same thing too, with like that big front Trijicon sight that I have on my Glock. Same thing. Like I'm not focused on the back. I'm just, I know what a level pistol is, and I'm pushing it out level. And then as soon as I get to extension, I know where the red dot is, and it's like a video game. Press play. It
is. So there's a couple things. We're seeing shooters that have maybe less exposure to growing up with iron sights will adopt or adapt to shooting a red dot much faster. The thing about a red dot, so the difference between a red dot on a rifle and a red dot on a pistol is this. Like that's a common analogy that people use, and it's not the most accurate. A better way to say that is the red dot on a pistol is similar to a low power variable optic on a rifle, right? So the difference is this: with a low power variable optic, you have eye relief that you have to manage. If you don't get the proper eye relief, you're going to get that scope shadow. You're not going to see the reticle, not going to see the dot. Same thing with a handgun, because the difference with a rifle, red dot on a rifle, is I got 2 extra points of contact. So I got my left hand, my right hand, I got the shoulder pocket, I got my cheek weld. So those extra points of contact allow me to reliably bring the window of the dot into my sight box. Whereas with a handgun, I don't have that same reliability. It's a little less reliable because I only have 2 points of contact, my left and my right hand. So that's why it's more relevant to look at it from an LPVO point of view and the complications of like shooting an LPVO. And where that becomes a problem is if the shooter does not have, in your case, you have a fairly regular routine, right? Your frequency of shooting is fairly standard. Like you have a plan. You go every 3 weeks. Yeah. Ish, whatever that is. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4.
Yeah, I mean with the pistol, but I still dry fire almost daily, and then I shoot my rifle. Like I shot my rifle almost every night for like 3 months. And like my SBR 416, with the fucking laser. Is, I mean, fuck, dude. When I light that laser up, it fucking goes.
Yeah, it does. But the difference is that you're with a red dot, the ability to move that optics window up in front of your eye where the gun is level for you to be able to see through the window to superimpose the dot on the target is the challenge. And so you go through, say, a 2-day class where you are promoting the pistol mounted optic, and as a result of that you get good with it, okay? But like anything else, that's a very perishable skill. What ends up happening is that if you don't put in the maintenance, if you don't have a regular routine as far as, and the dry fire is good, but dry fire is not the same.
No, it's
like
not the same at all.
Dry fire helps you, but what you need help in recovering the gun back on target. So that's the second shot, because with the red dot, chasing the red dot after the first shot is fired is where a lot of people have problems. Well, the first problem is the mount, not getting the right mount, not getting the window in front of their eye so that they can see the dot. And then the second problem is when they fire that first shot and they don't have a good enough grip to keep that in the position that allows them or affords them the best chance to see the sight the second time. And what ends up happening for both of those is almost the same error, which is overcorrecting, right? You overcorrect and you just never see the sight. You never see the dot inside the window because you're just making too big of corrections. So that's one of the problems that people will have. So my recommendation is if you are new and you are going to be shooting a red dot, that's great. But really put some thought into what's the interval. And everybody's going to be different. This is where we go back to
there was that guy who was at the very first light. I don't think had a ton of experience with his red dot because he kept bringing it up saying, I can't see the dot.
Yeah, absolutely. He had many mounts that the dot was not in his, didn't see it at all. And that's the problem. And so it is somewhat remedied with training, but it's never going to go away. You always have to practice for it. You always have to train for it. You always have to be ready for it. And that's an extra. So on the one hand, it's easy and fun to shoot. On the other hand, you have to be committed to it. You have to put the work into shooting that thing on a more regular basis. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you run into that problem where you just don't see it because it's not in front of your face. The other problem that people have with that is over aiming. Those are the two biggest problems that we see. Overcorrecting and over aiming. And over aiming means that because you can see that reference, the dot, so clearly, you're trying too hard to make it perfect. Right? It just needs to be good enough. And the problem is that, depending on the dot size, you really don't have a way of understanding what that really translates to until you shoot them enough to where okay, this is good enough. And then you just kind of keep repping that out. So my recommendation, if people want to explore red dots, is great. It's technology that's coming now. Some people will say that it's technology, it's the new technology of the future. It's going to be on everything. I disagree with that. Or a better way to say that is I don't know.
Yeah.
My gut tells me probably not, and I could be wrong. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, I could be wrong. What I believe is that with people that have put the time and energy into mastering it and then maintaining it, it'll be a very good tool for them, but it's not for somebody that's not going to put that level of investment in.
It's also another thing to catch on the clothing.
We can.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is like any other piece of gear. It's going to come with a pro. It's going to come with a con. But what happens is that everybody just wants to talk about the pros. They don't want to talk about the cons. And what I've done in conversations with people is like, give me the one reason that shooting a red dot is better than shooting iron sights. Like, tell me what it is. What is it that makes it shooting better? And what, or exclusive to a red dot? What is exclusive to a red dot that I can't do with iron sights? And so, that's where I try to help level the playing field in the sense, like, just be honest. What is it that is exclusive to shooting a red dot? Most of the time, people will say, well, it's anytime viewability. It's a red dot. I can see it anytime, any lighting conditions. And I'm like, that's true. You can, but can you see the target? And if you can't see the target, then it doesn't matter if you can see the dot. And if you can see the target, can you identify the target as a legal and moral target to use deadly force? And if so, okay, great. Another one is it's target focused, meaning that you're supposed to look at the target versus looking at the sight or the front sight post. And I tell this to everybody. It shocks people, but for like more than half my naval career, I was a target focused shooter with iron sights. I didn't know, like when people told me or yelled at me to shoot or look at the front sight, I said I would look at it. Like when it would come out of the holster, I would look at it, and then I would look at the target after that. And I'm shooting within the 1% of the entire community, which is that's already a high level of performers of sorts. So yeah, that's true. That's what it's designed to do, but that doesn't mean that you can't do that with iron sights as well. And I'm not saying that you should do that with iron sights. I'm just saying exclusive to red dots. What does red dots do that is exclusive to them only?
So the red dot, you focus on the target, and then when the dot comes up, which is, if I focus on the target, I bring it up, and the dot, when it covers the target.
That's it.
Whereas iron sights, I focus on that front sight and pushing it out, and then when it, you almost like
intersects
see
the
it go
sight
through
line with the target. Yeah.
Then you pull the trigger.
Same thing there. There's a couple of other traits that people will state about the red dot. But again, my thing is like, well, everything that you're stating can be done with iron sights too. The only thing that a red dot does that iron sights can't do really well, and they can, because there are plenty of guys that do this, but for the average person, is the ability to shoot at distance. It's like, and what I'm seeing is like, it's like a 50% improvement in your shooting ability at distance.
I watched
pretty significant.
I watched dudes with Trigicons on Glock 17s ring steel at 100 yards consistently. So they were drawing, shooting, and hitting 100-yard steel like consistently.
Absolutely, it can be done.
But I don't think I could hit 100 yards with iron sights. I mean, I would have to almost walk it up.
You could. I mean, yeah, you could with time. You could learn how to do it. You can learn how to aim, and the trigger control is really the key there. But my point is that is truly, in my opinion, the one trait that the pistol-mounted optic stands on the hill all by itself, is shooting at distance. The accuracy that it can generate at distance is the key. But unfortunately, most deadly force encounters are not at distance, and those that are such outliers right now that, it could prove to be very valuable if the end user has that maintenance schedule so that they can see the sight when they mount it. Because again, the big problem is not seeing the sight and overcorrecting on the first draw. And then
what you're saying, to pull this back, is shooting, just like everything, is a perishable skill. Just like your strength is perishable. Just like fitness is perishable. Conditioning, all these other things. If we don't put constant effort and have a plan in place, like a program, it fucking falls by the wayside. And I think what we end up getting stuck in, and I do this too when I don't shoot, there's also false bravado, where like all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, I just, we went to this pistol class, we shot here, and then you show up and you shoot and you're like, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. And then you're thinking like, all right, like, am I really, if some situation arose where I legitimately had to be John Wick, have I fucking done the training that would necessitate this outcome? Unlikely. Unlikely. I mean, shit, dude. Like, as you know from your community, nobody ever rises to the occasion. They just fall to the level of their training. Yeah.
I had this one guy in this last class, and he was struggling because he was a good shooter, and he kept missing at 12 o'clock. And I would tell him why he was missing at 12 o'clock, and it would like the problem that he had was he couldn't accept that those rounds were there. Like, when I would go down and show him his target and walk him through the process of what happened, he would not believe that those shots were there. Like, he would think that those were somebody else's shots, or that those were from the last drill that he didn't tape. And it happened more than one time that, he had the bravado, the ego was preventing him from recognizing that those shots, because he's other than those shots, he's got a nice grouping inside the 8 ring there, probably even inside the 6 ring. But those shots that were 12 o'clock outside the 8 ring were consistent, and they happened generally during one of the drills that we shoot. And I know why it happens, and I try to explain it to him, and he just had such a hard time accepting that. It's like, I could tell, maybe the third time that I told him what the problem was, he was no longer listening. He was no longer listening because he just could not accept the fact that those were his mistakes. Those were mistakes that he was making.
Well, I mean, certain people don't live in reality.
Well,
and it's not our job to shake them into reality. I mean,
But that's that unconscious incompetence.
Man,
as skilled as they are, they can still.
I played with a dude. I've told you a story. I played with a guy named Patrick Bensky, who was a German national that played.
If it's a negative story, you don't have to say their name.
No, I got no problem saying it. But he was one of our practice squad guys, and we went out. And I remember we went to dinner, and especially for the young dudes and the practice squad guys, I always try to be real friendly, just because it's part of your job is to mentor the young dudes, because you might need them at some point.
Yeah.
So I'd always
team.
Yeah. Because you might fucking need him. And so he was one of our young guys, and I took him out to dinner, and we went out, and I remember we had a couple drinks, and he sat there and he was like, I can't figure out why you're the starter and I'm not the starter. And he was bigger than me. He's probably 330. And he's like, I'm bigger than you. I'm like, yeah, but you're not stronger than me, and you're not faster than me. You don't have the experience I do. And you don't have the tech. It's just it's pretty apparent. You're a practice squad guy. I can tell you. And as I was going through, I was like, dude, you could be a good player, but here's all the places that you're lacking, and this is the difference. And I told him, unless you actually accept these limitations. I mean, because here's the thing, you could go out there and be like, John, you're the greatest shooter, right? And even though I'm throwing all these shots, it's not going to force me to get better. But if you go out there and you're like, dude, you're not meeting the standard, get your shit fucking going. And you start pushing, like here, giving feedback. And so for him, I'm like, dude, if you keep living within this like fucking thin candy shell of your mind and you don't accept reality, you're never going to, like, you're going to not understand what it's going to take to be better. And the sooner that you can swallow that poison pill and realize like, hey, I'm not making the standard. I'm not strong enough. I'm not fit enough. I don't have the technique. I'm not playing with leverage. I'm not bending my knees. I'm not doing all the things that I'm telling you. And as a dude that started and played at a high level, I can tell you what you're doing wrong. And he was like, and then we finally get to the point where he's like, I just can't accept that I'm not the best at all times. And
well, fair enough.
Yeah. And
cool.
And I was like, well, you know what?
Enjoy your time on the practice squad.
And he ended up getting released. And like, he was still like, it was hard for him to grasp. And it was one of the first times I ever met people that like, I mean, cause I like to constantly think that we're living in reality. And you know what? Like, reality is you know, I mean, like your course was incredible. Had Tex and I gone to the range every other day, we've been training for months in preparation of it so we could show up? No, fuck no, we didn't. Right? We just fucking showed up cold. Yeah. And you know what? Like if we had, and so knowing in my head the amount of work that I had done in preparation, I was like, but we were also going out there to have a good time and shoot, and Colin was here and to see you and just fucking bust balls. And also being proficient enough to be able to go out there and fucking shoot fine. But like, there's also like, you know, I don't know why I'm not better at this. And I'm like, have you done the work? I mean, we've run into people where they're like, you know, why aren't I stronger? Why haven't I done better? I'm like, well, what are you doing for your training? Have you followed all this?
Dude.
And then being able to be like, you have to almost, it's like a slide scale. Like, have you ever seen like the Crazy Hot Chick Matrix?
Yes.
Where like
Tiffany with an eye.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with training. Like if you want to put it here, I mean, like the one guy, and I forget his name, who shot real well, the cop.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mark. He shoots what is it, IDPA?
Yeah.
He's police officer. I mean, he obviously trains. Like this is something that's very important to him because he, like, as he got done with the class, he put on his uniform and was going out on patrol.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, this was something that he was probably radioing, and it's like, yeah, I'm on my lunch break. You know? Like it's something that's important to him.
Yeah.
And you know, he's done the work, so he's going to come out and perform at a high level. And like, there's no magic in it. Like, I mean, it comes down to
well, the magic is that. That's the magic.
Well, so the magic is hard work?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
God damn it. I just wish there was some special gun that shot itself.
Oh, well, not yet. But, you know, I love hearing you say that, too, because if I could get across to somebody, like, because one of the things I'm also worried about is that sometimes people will look at that, 80 hours, hard work, consistency, planning, maintenance, blah, 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 blah. And it'll be a turn off. It'll be a detriment to their entry. You know, so one of the things that I'm trying to do is remove as many barriers to entry as I can. And the one piece of advice that I will tell people that are just getting into this is that you've got to expect that you're gonna be bad for a while, and maybe that's okay. Maybe your gunfight, that's all you need. You just needed that, right? But I don't know, and therefore I'm always going to push you to move and continue to make, you know, achievements and get to the next level and continue to improve and get better, because that's the only way that I know that I can guarantee that things are going to go better for you. You know, that because they're like the saying, luck favors
chance or luck favors the prepared.
Yeah. So and it's actually the original version of that was luck favors the strong, and so it got, you know, like fortune favors the bold is the other way to look at that, and so luck favors the strong. So when I tell people that if you can just be like, if you can just be okay where you are, you're where you are for a reason. Like you were saying, be grateful to be a white belt and not have any responsibilities and not have any consequences and not have any requirements. Just appreciate that learning phase of taking in all this knowledge and just getting it. Look at that as a win. And be okay with it. And then if you choose down the road that you know what, I might want to put some more time into this, I might want to get better. Great. That's awesome. But my hope is that I can convince people that you don't necessarily have to climb up that scale. It's, in my opinion, like, I'm sure I'm talking to the wall here, that why else would I not want to reach the top.
Sure.
Be the very best that I could. But that to me, that just is the same reason why I take in air. It's like it's part of my nature. I wouldn't do anything unless I could do it as good as I could.
Isn't it?
But there are other people that don't want that.
Yeah, but I like the toughest thing is starting.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yes.
think about how many people are like, oh, I don't want to suck at this.
Yes.
So then they never start.
Yes.
And I was thinking on that with like, actually one of the favorite quotes I heard recently was, it's easier to raise your son right than fix broken men. It was like something.
Oh
like,
yeah, no. It's easier to raise your son. It's easier to raise your son than to, or it's easier
Hold
to.
on.
Yeah, no, I know it. It's like
I'm gonna fuck this one up.
No. It's easier to teach your son than to raise your grandchildren. Something like that. Because if you don't teach your son how to be a man, then you'll end up raising your grandchildren.
It's easier to build strong children than repair broken men.
Oh, okay.
So it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Perfect.
And
Okay.
it was actually Frederick Douglass.
What?
Yeah. So I mean,
Damn.
pretty easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And as I was thinking a little bit, I don't know, like, as we're having these conversations, quotes go through my head.
Love it.
But thinking about like, in this situation, like somebody coming to your course and like, like Chris, for example, like, I mean, what an opportunity. I mean, so when I got into pistol shooting, I was in Kansas City and I lived pretty kitty corner to a gun range.
Cool.
So on Mondays, we would just go to the gun range and I would just buy a gun. Like, it was so stupid. I'd go in there and I'd just buy something and I would shoot it. I bought like a Smith & Wesson 500.
Oh my God.
I had a Mark 23.
Holy shit.
I bought 1911s. Like, I would just go in there and buy something and I would shoot it. And then I would like sell it back to the dude and just get something else, or I'd keep it, or if I liked
Whatever.
it. So I just shot everything.
Wow.
And it got to the point where like there was a private range down there. And, like they were like, you guys are chiefs. Like, just fucking go down there. And there was
cool.
it was cool.
That's cool.
But zero fucking coaching.
Yeah.
We were just out there fucking like just like zero understanding of anything.
Yeah.
No YouTube, just nothing.
Nothing.
And so I had
Good
zero
old
coaching
days.
in it. Yeah. And then it wasn't until like I had shot a bunch with when I got into CrossFit, I met Dave Castro.
Oh yeah,
and, And I would go up to La Posta.
Yeah.
And I would go shoot with the students.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I got coached by Alex Sonnenberg, rest in peace, who since passed away.
Yeah.
Alex was EOD guy and ended up passing away in a squirrel suit accident, but amazing fucking dude. But Alex coached me up on pistols.
No way.
So it was Dave, who's a competent shooter.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah. And then Alex
Yeah.
would just show up and we would shoot.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think Tej was there and like
No
a bunch.
way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was cool. Like
That
a bunch
is-
of these cats would show up and they taught me how to shoot.
Yes.
So then I was much more proficient at shooting because now all of a sudden we were talking about pistol transition, rifles, and so I got to work with in the same curriculum that the students were at La Posta.
No way.
So I did that for a couple
You
years.
bastard.
I would drive down there and then take the ride and go to La Posta. And I would I remember Robin was there too, so I'd stay the night a bunch and we would shoot 2 days. Yeah,
That's awesome.
right. So then when I got invited to go out to Mid-South, that's when we got connected, and
Yeah.
I was like, yo man, like I've been out shooting with these guys, but like I legitimately need some fucking coaching.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, because I knew I had bad habits, but I'm coachable. Whereas I was thinking about Chris's experience, like here's an opportunity
Yes.
to work with, and I mean,
It was awesome.
yeah,
He was a great student.
but
to his credit.
But that's like creating a solid foundation now, which he ever goes and shoots, and if he wants to shoot more often, at least now he has a foundation of like, okay, I know what a high ready is. I mean, I remember fucking going and like those guys teach me like a low ready and a high ready position.
Yeah.
I'd never heard any of that
Yeah.
shit. And then like being like, well, why don't you want a high ready? And it's like, because you're gonna get the fucking thing bashed in your face.
Yeah.
We go low ready. NSW goes low ready.
Yeah.
So it was super valuable, but like having that experience and like that mentorship, it's kind of like, you haven't lifted weights and you show up to train a power athlete and we're like, okay, where are we at day one? Let's start where everybody starts. Let's start the foundation. Then
Yeah.
taking them like we're working with Victor and Shanji and,
Nice.
and the guys from Six Blades.
Yeah.
So they have the opportunity to like learn from the foundational
Love it.
pieces. And I think that like that is not stressed enough. Because you don't have all these preconceived notions. You don't have all these fucking bad habits. And you know what? You have no ego about it. You're like, I'm an empty vessel. I emptied my cup. Make me fucking good.
I will tell you one thing. For a long time, like getting back into fitness and learning how to lift correctly was kind of like a life-saving thing for me. You know, it got me out of a really bad place, but it gave me the opportunity to learn, you know, like to actually put my student hat on, be a sponge, take as much information on as I can, just relish in the fact that I get to learn again. And one of the traits that I try to encourage students to have is curiosity. Be curious as a student. Ask questions. Learn about why this works and why that doesn't work. You know, be engaged in your own learning process. And I saw this with my kids growing up. They both had some learning disabilities that we had to work with. And so one of the things that I feel was not reinforced enough with them is that curiosity to learn. And it became more of like a mechanical process versus, you know, it should be fun, it should be entertaining, there should be some sort of value to it that is not just, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be able to protect myself. There needs to be something about, like, at the end of the day, I'm accomplishing something that I hadn't been able to accomplish before. I have learned, I have achieved a new level, a new skill, and that's cool. Like, that's like I love learning new things now, and I've really tried to push outside my comfort zone and get involved in things that I might not normally have done in the past. And part of it is that I have more time on my hands now. You know, I'm in a place in my life where, you know, we're successful. I can pick and choose where I want to go and what I want to do. So I kind of leave plenty of opportunity open to explore things and change. You know, I am a creature of habit, and I know that, but when I'm in a learning mode, I have no habits. What are my habits that I need to learn? What is my process? What do I need to take on? How do I need to learn this? How does this process work? You know, like, these are questions that I have. And I also try to tell the students, like, if you don't understand the process, if you don't understand the why, you're not really taking part in the learning. You're just along for the ride. And that's okay. Maybe that'll get you through it. But when you take a vested interest in the why and the learning process, it means more to you. It's more valuable, and you understand it at a much different level. And that's what I need from my students. I need them to be engaged in that way. Be curious, understand the why, have just a relentless attitude about wanting to just, like, take on new knowledge. Hopefully more people get that. We see that now. I'm very happy with the number of new students that we see in classes. It's reassuring to me to see that, you know, the influx of new shooters is now propagating. You know, it took a while for them to kind of reach this new level where where they value training and where they value learning, and they want to take it to their next level. You know, we had that growth spurt in 2019 and 2020, and then a little bit of 2021, and now what we're seeing is a lot of those individuals that are like, okay, it's been a couple years. All right, let me check out this training education stuff, and let me see if it's something that I'm interested in. Others have done it for more visceral reasons because they truly are concerned about where we are, in this country right now. But others are taking it, but it's like, all right, I want to learn. I want to take this on. Yeah. But Tex, you were a very good student. You were teachable.
Want to get it on record that during the final competition phase,
yes,
John and I were able to face off.
It was good.
Yes,
one of us, and as far as social media is concerned, I
yeah.
won the whole course.
No, you crushed it. I also got to pull out my fucking 8-shot revolver.
That little thing was hilarious. The first time I saw it, I was like, what the fuck?
I tucked it under my shirt, and when we went to go draw it,
I totally was.
You were like, what the shit?
And it was cool too. I mean, you got a couple of hits on the steel on that one. That was good. Yes, but Tex might have sucked throughout the whole class, but he had that one,
which is
party
good.
Shot. Literally,
I am happy that he was able to, like, fucking
put it
go
together.
Ahead. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's what we want. You know, for that one drill, you were a hero.
Dude, you crushed it. That was great. I'm just stoked that I got to shoot that thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't carry it. I have it. Like, it's just,
that thing is hilarious. It's so obnoxious.
It's 8-shot 350. Like, I only shoot 38 plus Ps. Like, I don't shoot 357 loads out of that thing.
Fuck that. Are you kidding? It's like You have enough TBI. You don't need any more.
Well, when you were talking about like high-powered ammo and all this other shit, I've never shot 357 full loads out of that motherfucker.
I mean, the only time is if I'm in the field do I take 357s in my wheel guns.
Fuck no, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy one. I like the thing I do like about a wheel gun is like there's no springs.
Yeah.
Like
Well, there are a lot of springs, but they're all internal.
Yeah, like it's like you could put that thing in the freezer and it's still going to shoot. Yeah.
So I got practice.
Oh,
You don't have to stop.
No, we'll cut it there. I mean, I know we could chew the fat forever, but man, dude, thank you so much for coming on. Fuck, dude, we've been friends for so long.
I know.
I mean, so when I would come out to Austin when we were looking for this, I'd stay at Jeff's house.
Yeah.
And,
it was awesome. And the fact that he's only 10 minutes from my house now just makes it even better.
And then and the one of the saddest days, Jeff had the most bitchin' dog, Artemis. And that dog was hilarious because I'd be like, Jeff would get up early and I was just kind of like laying there and I'd see the door crack and the dog would look at me and I'd like turn my head and then he would go back out. Then like a few seconds later, so we'd play this little game and then I would like open my eyes and he would see me and he would sprint through the door and try to like spear me into the... I'm not kidding you, dude. That dog was like...
I love him, man.
His soul, like somehow like...
he really did like you too. He really did. I miss that guy.
Yeah.
Our new one, Brizo, she's a Belgian. So Argus was a German Shepherd and Brizo is a Belgian Malinois. And she's got, oh man. Yeah. You guys
She's high motor.
She is. You guys spent some quality time with her because that girl is hilarious. She's vicious. She's like everybody calls them like land sharks and fur missiles. And
I told you
like
that they call DJ's girl has a Malinois and they call it the hair missile.
Yeah.
Because they had 12 chickens. Now they have no more chickens.
They have no more chickens.
So the dog was launching itself off the deck and then hitting the chickens and like she's like, I've never seen anything like it. It was like it shot out of a gun.
Yeah.
Those dogs are so
beautiful.
badass.
I love them.
If people want to learn more about your courses and all your offerings.
Yeah. All right. TridentConcepts.com. Please go to our website. We finally got it back up. It was kind of in a stagnant mode, but it's up and running now. You can go to all of our social media. You can go off of our webpage, our main page on the website. You can go and find all our social media. I really encourage people to check out our blogs, though, because we've written like over 750 plus blogs on shooting.
And you write pretty often for AR-15 magazine or the website, but also a bunch of like the gun mags.
Absolutely. There's that. We got a bunch of new products that just came out. We got a new book, the Concealed Carry Manual, that just came out. Very happy with that. So it's a great Christmas gift. So we'll have Black Friday sales. So check that out. Yeah. We started the podcast, the Bulletproof Workshop, and folks can check that out by going to bulletproofworkshop.com. And that's about it, man. Dude, this has been awesome. And again, kudos to both of you for doing such a great job in the class. Thank you for coming out and spending time out there. It was great. I'm always humbled by being able to work around stellar guys like yourself. So that was a lot of fun. Plus, I also feel good that you guys have these skills that you can defend your family and protect yourself. So it makes me feel good too.
And it was fun. We got to go out there and laugh and joke. And like I think sometimes at the shooting stuff, people get so serious.
It's true. They can.
And I like to hey, if
tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, well, if we're going to be out here, like let's joke and have a good time.
Yeah. We tried. We have to. Sometimes we also have to add that levity because it helps to kind of get over the butt hurt.
Yeah. Nice. Well, dude, thanks for coming.
My pleasure, brothers.
And for anybody listening, Power Athlete Radio.
Bye.
Bye.